So we just talked about probability, and a lot of it had to do with percentages. So let's go into percentages a little bit more. This is a very basic concept. So it's good to kind of hit on these every once in a while. And remember, if you're not reading up on this stuff on your own, you're only screwing yourself. So do yourself a favor and help yourself. If you don't know that this is the percentage sign, you're screwed. So keep watching. But yeah, that's the percentage sign. And let's dissect what this word percent means. I've learned that if you understand what words mean at their root and where they come from, it helps a lot, actually, in figuring out what things mean in context, instead of having to look things up all the time. But we'll do that, actually. Here we'll look up the word percent. All right, so I'm going to write it out. This is the word percent. So I see two words in this one word, one of them being per and the other being cent. So let's look up what both of those words means, per and cent. A simple Google search tells us that per means for each, right? So per is for each. Another simple Google search tells us that cent has to do with hundredths or hundreds. You can see even down here the origin. That's probably that's a good place to look. I like to look there, especially to see where words come from, like what languages. But here, cent, 100. So cent corresponds with 100. Per corresponds with for each. It's worth mentioning too, think about what other words have the word cent in them. Century. How many years is a century? A centipede. How many legs does it have? Those are some things you might want to think about to help you figure out what words mean. So now, in addition to using the actual word percent, we can also combine these definitions and say that percent, another way to express that is for each 100. For each 100. Same thing as percent. So let's look at a couple examples just to illustrate this point. I'm going to take 50%, right? And instead of saying 50%, I can now say 50 for each 100. Now, where would I go from here? Well, let's write this as a fraction. So let's write this as 50 for each 100, or 50 over 100. And we can simplify this fraction. 50 over 100. If you got 50 out of 100 questions correct, you could think of it that way. That would be like saying, oh, I got half of the questions right. Or if I ate 50 pieces of candy out of a total 100 pieces of candy, I'd eaten half of all the candy. So this simplifies down to 1/2. So another way of expressing percentages is using fractions. And another way of expressing fractions is using percent. So we'll look at kind of exchanging back and forth between the two later on. But 1/2 is equivalent to 50%, which is the same as 50 for each 100. So let's look at another example. So at the time of recording this, it has just become 2025. So we'll do a goals-related question to this. So if you accomplish 6 out of 10 goals you set for yourself, what percentage of your goals did you accomplish? So we just mentioned that percentages and fractions are kind of one and the same. They're just different ways to express the same concept. And we want to take this fraction, 6 out of 10, and convert it to a percentage. Sometimes it's nice to have percentages instead of fractions. It just depends on the situation. So how do we convert this to a percent? Well, if I look back here in this example up here, the first step going from a percentage to a fraction was to express this percent as a fraction with 100 in the denominator. So that's what we want to do here. We want 100 in the denominator. And I'll ask myself, what number, let's say we'll do, what times the denominator will equal 100. This is the first thing you want to ask when converting fractions to percentages. So I see if I got 10 in the denominator. So what number times 10 is going to give me 100? Well, that's 10. So I'm going to do times 10 on the bottom. And I have to do the same on the top. And what I'll get is I will get 60 out of 100. Or in other words, 60 for each 100, or 60%.